Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we're going to talk about Christian nationalism. Ryan Walters, impeachment, Republicans, gerrymandering, all kinds of stuff that's going on in Oklahoma this week on Across the Desk. So there have been a few developments this week in Oklahoma as far as the drama of politics and what's been going on. We're in the middle of a presidential election, and other elections are going on as well, but it's not the only thing going on. But we do have a presidential election coming up in around 100 days, maybe a little less. And everybody's kind of going nuts over it. Right now, there isn't any Congress or legislature in session, so we don't have that drama to worry about. But there is a lot of other stuff going on. One of the biggest things that's been going on in Oklahoma has really been sucking a lot of the oxygen out of the room is Ryan Walters. See, Ryan Walters is a Christian nationalist. His buddies, the people that are on his team, being Dan Isett and Matt Langston, are both Christian nationalists. Now, the weird thing is, Dan and Matt, they don't even live in Oklahoma. It is very much a fact that they live in Texas. Matt lives in Austin. As a matter of fact, we can see he's spending Oklahoma taxpayer money to fly out of Austin to whatever convention or wherever he's going, and then flying back to Austin. And he's using Oklahoma taxpayer money to do all this. We just saw this a couple of weeks ago. Now we have a deal come out with Title I funding for our schools. They're really late with it. They're coming out here just a few days before school starts for a lot of people. Some schools have already started. They don't know their funding formula. And then the Oklahoma Department of Education comes out and says, oh, these people are lying. We have the funding out. It's been out there. But you talk to all these other people, and they're like, we haven't heard anything. They don't have anything. There's hardly any communication from the Department of Education. Ryan Walters is an authoritarian figure. He is very much a dictator in a lot of ways. He doesn't want to listen to the AG, tries to find ways to undermine the Attorney General Drummond any way he can in anything he does. Not only that, going as far as contempt of court from the Oklahoma Supreme Court, defying their order to rescind the contract for St. Isidore, which is a virtual charter school, which was going to be the first religious public school to get public funding, which is a real big no-no as far as our state constitution is concerned, not including the implications this means for the United States Constitution when it comes to the First Amendment. So here we have these things going on. We have them going through the process, the AG suing them in court, going to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Oklahoma Supreme Court decides 7-1 that, no, you need to rescind this contract. And what do? Well, Ryan first gets rid of all the lawyers, or actually the lawyers that were in the Department of Education, they quit because, see, Ryan Walters wants to do a lot of icky, unethical, illegal stuff. So they didn't want to do that. They want to put their licenses on the line, so they all left. Now Ryan has these yes men in there, and one lady in particular sits in on the board meetings. We're paying $300 an hour to be his yes man, basically, and allow him to do whatever. So the Supreme Court comes in and says, hey, you got to rescind this contract. Goes against the Constitution. And what did the board do? They say, well, I think we'll wait. We're gonna petition the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll wait on this. And so Drummond came back and said, hey, Supreme Court, Oklahoma, you need to get on them and say, if this isn't a suggestion, this isn't a piece of legislation that's going to take effect at a later date. When you make a decision, that decision is final right then. So they go back, the Supreme Court says, yeah, man, no, we're not going to stay this. You need to rescind that contract now. Well, we're going to see, because this week, the Virtual Charter School Board is going to meet, and we'll see if they rescind the contract. If they don't, they could be in contempt of court. And this is what Ryan Walters likes to do, you see. He likes to get all these people in front of him because he's really not going to fight any battles. He's not going to he's going to get other people to do it. And then those other people are going to reap the consequences. See, they're the ones who are going to go get charged with contempt of court. They're the ones in school board meetings who are going to get charged with violating the Open Records Meeting Act because they won't allow sitting legislatures into the closed executive meetings that they are allowed to be in. See, they even do that too. So it's always about undermining real authority so that Ryan Walters can consolidate power and be more of a dictator than he is, because let's face it, Christian nationalism is big government, and that's what this is all about. Putting Bible in schools to make sure that no matter who you are, if you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jew, anybody else, an atheist, anything, your kid is going to be a Christian, which causes division. That's all this is. That's all this does. It's about wrecking the public school system in Oklahoma so that Ryan can give it to his moneyed private school buddies and get a big old kickback for that. That's what this is about. Because here we go. There's millions of dollars missing out of the public education budget. That class wallop thing that happened 2 years ago, guess what? We still don't know where $3 to $5 million of it is. There's $3 to $5 million that's just totally unaccounted for. We have no idea where it is, and there's no investigations going on. Which brings me up to another point about all of this. See, Oklahoma is a very well gerrymandered state. You can see it. When District 33, that's a Senate district, Oklahoma Senate District 33 is 8-5 Republican to Democrat. That's gerrymandered. The Democrat has to pull out at least 82% of Democrats, while the Republican only needs to pull out about 25. And even at that, at 82% Democrats show up to vote and 25% Republicans show up to vote, that's going to make it a close race. You see, it's not even a guaranteed win for the Democrat if they pull out almost 4 times the amount of people to vote for them. That's going to make it just close. It's not going to be like an outright win. So this is totally gerrymandered. And you can see like what they did with the U.S. House districts. It's a classic will-spoke gerrymander, just like they have in Texas. They did the same thing to Austin. If you look at Austin's districts, they start at Austin and then they go out like spokes on a wheel. And that's kind of what they did here in Oklahoma, because we have 5 districts. And 4 of the 5 districts go right through the center of Oklahoma City. They did that because Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County, is the most liberal, probably, area in Oklahoma. So what do? They take 4 of the 5 districts and they run them right through the middle of Oklahoma City, splitting up that vote, splitting up that Democrat vote into these other districts. That's exactly what they did. And so you have a classic will-spoke gerrymander of our U.S. House of Representatives seats here in Oklahoma. Why? Because, see, Republicans only care about power and control. They don't care about your freedom. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about your individual rights or responsibilities. They only care that they retain the power. As we can see time and again with people like James Lanford, who was willing to pull a soft coup in order to disenfranchise tens of millions of voters so that their electors wouldn't be seated and they could keep Trump president illegally. He was really willing to do that. Yes, he was willing to throw out the Constitution, be a traitor, so that we could keep Trump as president even though he didn't win. That's James Lanford, and this is where they're from. This is how they start, you see. And so since we have this gerrymandering, getting back to my point, they're not willing to do anything. See, Republicans are typically cowards. They do not hold their own to account. Now, we have this thing going on right now this week. What happens? Well, Ryan Walters takes away money for security funding. The craziest thing is the legislature passed a law saying, okay, we want to give schools the ability to have $90,000 a year for 3 years. And their money will roll over. So if they don't spend it all that year, what's left over will roll over to the next year. Well, some of these people are like, okay, we have some projects that cost more than $90,000, so we'll just hold on to that 90. We'll let it roll over. It'll be 180 the next year, and then we can get our infrastructure upgrades, our computer upgrades, and everything else that we can afford to do. Well, it even said on the website, the Oklahoma Department of Education website, when it comes to this, that, these funds will roll over. And News Channel 4 here in Oklahoma City, NBC station, did a pretty good article on this, did a pretty good newscast on it, saying, hey, this was actually in there. Well, guess what? Guess what the Department of Education did when the story came out? Well, they scrubbed it. It's not on there anymore. So what they did was, all of a sudden, if you went in and you expected your account to have this money in it and roll over, all of a sudden it went to zero. That money that was allocated to that school went to zero. And this goes against what the legislature voted on. They did not vote on this. This is not what the bill says. This isn't what is law. Even the authors of it came out and said that was not our intent. Our intent was definitely for it to roll over. Well, what did the Oklahoma Department of Education do? Well, they got their yes man lawyer to come out there and say, well, we interpreted it differently. They don't get to interpret it differently. They get to interpret it the way the law was written. You go back to see what the intent of the authors were, which we know was it they were supposed to be able to roll this over. So, but the Department of Education took it upon themselves with power they do not have to take this money away from the schools. Now, here's the best part about this, or the worst part about it. We don't know where that money went. All that money that was earmarked for these schools to be rolled over that all of a sudden went to zero balance, we have no idea where it is, where it went, what they did with it. They're so untransparent. Ryan Walters and his crew is. We have no idea. We have no clue. Nobody knows. It's like the class wallet thing. We have no idea what happened to the millions of bucks. We have no idea to this day. And we won't. Because you see, Republicans will not hold their own to account. They don't. And this is a perfect example because, see, the news story is about the Republicans want to start impeachment proceedings against Ryan Walters. Could others follow? Well, when you read the story and you listen to what they're saying, that's not really what they're doing. They're not really wanting to start impeachment proceedings. They're just what they're willing to do is to start to say the I word. And that's exactly how McBride put it, who's a Republican legislature, who's getting pretty fed up with Ryan Walters. He calls it the I word. You know why he calls it the I word? Because he really doesn't want to say impeachment. I want to say impeachment. I want to say it. I want to do that. And this guy is the leading Republican when it comes to wanting to impeach Walters. Everybody else are not even willing to say the I word. They're not even willing to say I word, much less impeachment. And I'm going to tell you something. They're not going to impeach Ryan Walters. You know why? One of the big reasons is the leader of the House, the leader of the Senate, they don't have the guts for that. They're not going to impeach Ryan Walters. Not going to happen. It's not going to go anywhere because Republicans, again, will not hold their own to account. They just won't do it. Absolutely not. Absolutely zero that they're going to impeach anybody, including Walters. He can come out and say, yeah, I'm on my yacht. I'm taking all these fancy trips. I'm doing all this stuff, bought my wife some furs and everything else. Yeah, I did it with Oklahoma taxpayer money. He could come out and admit it. He could be as transparent as possible. Yeah, I took this money and stole it. I gave it to my buddy Matt Langston down in Texas. Gave it to him. I gave it all to these people that I love. I gave it to them. I donated it to these PACs and everything else. Your taxpayer dollars, yes, I did. And you know what Republicans will do? They'll sit there and exclaim how they can't say the I word. It's exactly what they're going to do, see, because they're basically cowards. Yes, McBride, even though he's been hot on it and everything else. Drummond, even though he's actually taken him to court and everything else, still hasn't really put it to him. Still hasn't really said, oh, you're going to be in contempt. You're going to be in contempt. He won't charge him for it. He won't actually do anything. These are Republicans, after all. This is how they operate. This is what they do. And they've done this for so long. This is exactly how you see it. And it's all because of the gerrymandering. You see, this state is highly gerrymandered. We got about 40% Democrats registered in Oklahoma. We have about 46% Republicans and the rest are independents. You see, but we're represented, when it comes to representation, you have about 12% Democrats in public office. Why? Because it's gerrymandered. Absolutely. We don't have a real republic in Oklahoma. It's more of a bastardized republic. It's definitely a perverted version of one because we don't have real representation here. We have government officials, elected leaders, choosing who their voters are going to be. It's exactly what we have. Like we have Stephanie Bice in District 5. See, and this is one of the big contentions right here. You can just see the anxiety in Republicans when it comes to District 5. Because, one, we had a Democrat in there for a little while. We did, with Representative Horn. She was in there for 2 years and then lost really closely to Stephanie Bice. Then there's another election. Bice barely skated by. So what did they do? Well, they added 11% more Democrats to District 5. That's what they did. So to ensure that she can hold that seat, because really she's kind of a weak leader when it comes to what she's done or anything she tries to do or says. So, and men in the Republican Party, they discount women. So she's really not, she's pretty much regulated to asking how will you want your coffee, pretty much. She doesn't really do anything. She may say, oh, I'm authoring a bill or I'm doing this. And really it's not what she's doing. She may sponsor a bill. She doesn't really have the power or the ability to write a bill and have the leadership to carry it forward. Kind of like she put out a deal talking about the Secretary of Defense, talking about the guy who's in charge of the border, saying we need to reduce his pay. And it's such a cynical and petty way. You know, and this is just to garner her likes on Facebook, pretty much, is all that is, because this bill's not going anywhere. No one's going to bring that up. No one's going to limit the pay of anybody in the government. That's not going anywhere. It's just fluff. So that's what we have with Republicans and why they're doing it, right? So we have this news article talking about how Republicans want to start impeachment, but that's not really true. All they're wanting to do now is say the I word. Oh, the I word, and they won't even say impeachment. They'll just call it the I word. And so maybe they're getting there. Democrats definitely are. They've been calling for his impeachment for a while. Hey, man, this guy's corrupt. We're missing taxpayer dollars by the millions. He's devastating public education and on purpose for his private school buddies. So he can go, see how bad public schools are? We just need to give this to private ed. Give all that money to my private school buddies because it's the biggest part of the Oklahoma budget in the billions of dollars, and he'll get a nice juicy kickback for it. That's exactly what's going on. You see, look at it. Look how icky this is. You've got a guy named Matt Langston whose only claim to fame is that he is a political consultant. That's it. I run campaigns. And then he goes to Ryan Walter and goes, hey, man, if you win, you give me a job. And Ryan Walter, sure, man, I win, you got a job. He puts him in a job without a contract, no resume, that he's not qualified for. That's why there's no resume. That's why there's no contract. You see, because Matthew Langston isn't qualified for the job that he has in the Oklahoma Department of Education. Which is really, there's nothing there. There's no job title. There's no job description for what he does. He's just fleecing the state over $100 million a year because he got Ryan Walters elected. That's pretty much it. This is a big kickback for Matt Langston for getting Ryan Walters elected. These are real icky people. Christian nationalists. Just, they don't care. They really don't care. If you're not a Christian, they feel like they can abuse you. They can take your rights away. They really want that caste system. And that's really where we're at right now in Oklahoma. You've got a bunch of Republicans in charge. They've been in charge for near 20 years. 20 years they've been in charge. And this state of our state is direct effect of Republican leadership. You can't blame it on anybody else when they've been in charge of all the state offices, the legislature, for near 20 years. They get to own all of this. And it's a big reason why they can't hold anybody to account. It's why we're not going to see anything happen to Walters. He's not going to go to jail. They're not going to impeach him. They're not going to do anything. And if he won again, they'll be right there behind him. I'll guarantee it. Well, this is Across the Desk, and we'll see you next week.